I am delighted to welcome you here today in the middle of July, well, the beginning points of July, and we're entering into the lunar eclipse time. Very powerful. I am here with a wonderful, wonderful dear friend of mine, Barbara Korte. And this is a conversation as the beginning of a series around Earth wisdom transmissions, where I'm going to be speaking to wisdom keepers who hold knowledge around the Earth, from practical aspects of permaculture all the way through to the esoteric and more spiritual, energetic components of Earth stewardship and Earth wisdom. So, Barbara, thank you for being here with me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Mara. And I think it's much needed. So congratulations on bringing this forward.
It's timely, Barbara, as you know.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm just going to introduce Barbara. I have actually known Barbara for many years. We met in Peru back in 2011, very synchronistically we were both on different sacred journeys in Peru with groups. And Barb came bowling into my life, and I'll tell you, my life has not been the same since meeting you. We've had many, many adventures, and just a little bit about Barbara. She is a spiritual teacher and counselor with over 20 years experience of working with groups and individuals in across the board using modalities such as sound, energetic frequencies, and counseling to really help people empower themselves and connect to their true soul's guidance in these times. And she really is a big component of helping people bridge back to their true state of being. Her life has been very diverse, I know, and she's going to speak to us a little bit about that. And she has been blessed with many interdimensional experiences that have helped her understand the planet and its true history at a far deeper level. She's in the midst of about to release her own book, actually her own memoirs, called Memoirs of a Mystic Misfit. And this is a story that is really, the heroine's journey of moving from dysfunction to opening up to her spiritual gifts and way beyond. So I'm really excited to dive into that. And Barbara has a huge mission here on the earth, and we're going to talk about that as well. So, she holds a lot of codes for humanity and has been doing earth work, working around the world with the land and with the star energies and the earth frequencies for many years. So we're going to dive into that now. So thank you, Barb, again. And yeah,
it's awesome. Yeah, thanks. This is a perfect time and the perfect way to just start easing into things for people and helping them open up, because we all hold lots of those gifts, right?
Absolutely, we do. Yes, yes. And, having journeyed with you in many sacred lands around the world, I've experienced your magic and the potency of what you've held for humanity and what you continue to walk in your daily life, So I'd love to speak to that and start, asking you, give us a little bit about your own background and what has led you to this kind of earth stewardship work.
Okay, yeah, well, it's an interesting one. It is. Well, I guess I have to start from the beginning. So I was born into a family that had double alcoholism. So it was a quite turbulent family life. And, as we all know, that once you are programmed into that kind of lifestyle, it takes a very long time for you to work your way through it. And what you do is go on this journey of healing, but in order to do that, you have to have lots of life experiences, right? So I ended up marrying 2 different men, one right out of high school, one 8 years later, and I still hadn't healed the alcoholism aspects of the family. So I basically married back into that kind of a dysfunction. I didn't have an alcoholism problem, but it ran everywhere that I went. And so the first husband, he had a little bit of that running through him, and the second was actually a dry drunk, because I said I would never marry another man that had that going. So I did that, and I had 5 children, and we moved on to this farm. And once I got on the farm, I always go a little over the top. You know me, Mara. I just do that. So I got 400 chickens and 30 pigs and 10 cows and turkeys and ducks and geese and everything that you could imagine, sheep, and had my 5 children who were in 5 different school districts. And I helped farm part-time, plus I did farmers market. So the wheels never quit going. And I never, ever learned to slow down and really go inside. I was so busy. I was projecting everything into life on the outside. And because I was so busy, I never had the time to really understand at a very deep level who I was. And so at one point, as always happens, I got into a fight at the table with my husband during a meal, which is the one thing I asked to never have happen. And it broke me. It just broke me. And the 5 kids were there, and I didn't want to, show them that side. I didn't want them to see what was all going on within me. And I just went to the bathroom, and I started filling up the tub, and I laid in there, and I just sobbed, and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I just can't be here. I think my kids are old enough now. I don't need to be here anymore. I just want to die. And as I was laying there in the bathtub, I started noticing these shifts in color. And it was like the tiles were like burgundy and off-white. It was like the old style country house, And the burgundy started going and shifting to the burgundy, and the white started going to the white or the cream. And before you knew it, there was this perfect outline of Christ on it, just where it met the tub. And it was about 12 inches tall. And it was just the silhouette of Christ's head, but it was undeniable what it was. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? And I started tracing it, and I could feel this beautiful unconditional love start flowing through all of my body. And I started noticing again this morphine and this, coming together of these different colors down at the foot of the tub. And then appeared the perfect silhouette of Mother Mary's head. And I was like, oh my gosh, so I'm just tracing it, trying to figure out, what is this? How did this even happen? And both combined together just started flooding every cell of my being with all of the energy that I needed to, to really reboot my body and my soul. And within that, I knew that I needed to stay there. There were no words exchanged, only this beautiful, loving, unconditional love flowing through my body. And so within that, there was a knowingness that I had a mission and I needed to stay here. So I promised that I would. And it lasted maybe about 10 minutes. It wasn't that long. And then they started to disappear, and everything started to go back to where it was. And I was going to quick get out of the tub and call for my children and ask them to come in so they could see it. But of course, by the time they got there, it was completely gone. So that was my first, awakening that just, it changed the fabric of who I was. And it really made me question things, because it's how did that even happen? I don't know. So the second one was interesting because I put a bakery together, And the bakery was on the farm. It was called Korte's Country Bread. And you talk about work. I got up at 2:00 in the morning and I worked until 8:00 at night. And it was intense. It was every other day. And plus, I was trying to keep my kids all going, plus my husband, plus the farm. So I added another, notch on the next, and it just went over the top. Well, I started getting carpal tunnel. And I thought, oh my God, I can't go have surgery. I have all these people show me these little, bandages they have around there. And I asked if it worked, and they'll say no, and you have to wear this for the rest of your life. And I'm like, I am not going to do that. So I kind of put it out there to the universe, and I said, I want to find a different way to heal this. And somebody came forward and said, well, why don't you try healing touch? And I'm like, well, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to figure it out. So I ended up finding a lady in Mankato, Minnesota who did it. And while on the table, again, Jesus came walking out of the closet. Mother Mary came walking out of the closet, and they both stood around me and started sending energy into me while the practitioner was doing her work. And there was another one that was shrouded by the closet, but she had this bright orange hair and she had her face all covered, so I couldn't really see who she was. But I just had a knowingness that she was there. And after Jesus and Mother Mary did the healing, they walked back and out into the closet. They all left. And after that, I had like 3 days of intense pain, and then my carpal tunnel went completely away. There was nothing. So I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I want to know what this is, and I'm going to learn it. So I intensively started researching, and I found a place where they taught it. And I went and took that class. Plus, I was taking classes to be a interfaith minister, which I am. And during my bread times, Christ would come in and he would literally bless the bread with me as we did the work. And that whole time that I got from 2:00 in the morning until 5 or 6 in the morning, there would be nonstop teaching. And it would be like these guides would come in, or Christ would come in, and they would talk to me nonstop and tell me stuff. And I was like, wow, this is like fascinating. I couldn't wait to get to work in the morning. And if I had a question, I'd just put it out to the universe and go, okay, I need to know about energy fields. I want to understand how the universal energy field works. And the next day they'd say, turn off all your equipment. I had bread raising. I mean, like, we're talking a huge bakery. And I'd say, well, I can't do that. I'll come back. Everything will be all over the floor. I'll have to start all over. And they're, no, you can do this. So I'd go outside and they would show me everything. They would say, now look at that flower over there. And I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, well, do you see a little light around it? And I'd say, well, no. And they'd say, well, squint your eyes. So I'd squint them and I'd look, and sure enough, there was a field of energy. And then they'd look at the bush. Yep, there's a field of energy. Look at the tree. Oh, yeah, there's a big field of energy. Now, kind of squint your eyes and let it all flow together. And then I saw that there was this huge mass of energy all over everything. And that actually the trees and everything fed knowledge, and people feed knowledge into this universal energy field, which is how we pluck little pieces of knowledge from everywhere, and why so many people can get the same things going at the same time. It's like you write a song, but you don't want to put it out. Well, guess what? Somebody else is going to get that down. So it was very, very interesting. And I got to the point where I understood that the universe wants to teach us, but we have to ask for it. So I got into that whole understanding, which was very incredibly helpful. And through all of it, I started opening up my energetic body. So the third opening came when I was told to go to Mount Shasta. And it was with a group of women, a very beautiful group of women at all different levels of understanding, spiritual understanding. And we went to do a ceremony. I was shown where it had to play out. And when we got down there to do the ceremony, one of the women came over and said, "Barb, this is for you. You're supposed to lay in the middle of the circle." And I was like, nope, I'm too embarrassed. I don't want to do that. And they said, "Come on, lay in the middle of the circle. It's okay." So I did. And I was so glad that I did, because when I did, I journeyed to Middle Earth. And in Middle Earth, I got to become a big, huge willow tree. And then the willow tree started excluding all of her knowledge. And she showed how she actually gave the Native Americans knowledge about what do you call that? Where they go in and do their ceremonies into those little huts. I can't think of the name right now.
Into sweat lodge?
Lodges, yeah. So how to create sweat lodges and all of that. And she showed how the elements actually carry all of the information that we need, and all we have to do is tune in, because nature is part of us. We've been disconnected from nature. But in Middle Earth, the mythical creatures were down there. All of the beings that we thought were extinct, all the animals that we thought were extinct, everything emitted consciousness, like even the water. And they held little tiny soft tunes. They each emitted soft little tunes. And it wasn't overwhelming, but everything had a different tune. And when it came together, it was so harmonically beautiful. It was incredible. And I remember not wanting to go back again. And they showed me like the elementals. They showed me everything. And then they called me ambassador, and they said, "Your job here on this planet is to bring all of the nations back together again." And I thought, whoa, like that's pretty wild. I don't even know how I would do that. And my limited mind thought it meant through the indigenous cultures. But in reality, it means is that I'm very connected to the star beings, to the inner earth beings, to the mythical beings, and to the elementals. And it's like enable for us to get to our beautiful new place on this planet, we all have to come together. And so my job here is to help bridge all of those essences together and to help people remember, because we all hold that knowledge, but it's very deep within us. And once you start opening up to experiences and you have gratefulness for the experiences, even though sometimes they can freak you out just a little bit, it is, if you can be brave and you can just open your heart and you can be in gratitude for the experiences that are here to help open you up, you become more and more and more and more and more in tune, and you bring more and more and more and more and more experiences. So part of me is like, I don't really understand why in the world I've had so many experiences. And part of me is like, because you're supposed to, because you can share it, because you're a storyteller. Because if everybody can start sharing their stories, Mara, I really feel like it would open up remembrance. And I think that's the biggest key to creating the new earth together, is to help people open those remembrances. And that's what I feel like my book really actually is a coding for experience, so that people, when they read it, it actually like goes into their cellular structure and begins to unlock the keys and codes that they hold to be able to move forward and do their earth work, or to be able to move forward and have those interdimensional experiences. Whatever it is, as you and I both know, that as we go and we travel the planet, or as we go to do certain things, we pick up keys and codes and we bring them back, and then we share them throughout our field, or as we walk the planet, we put those codes back into the earth where they need to go. And that is what, earthwork is all about. And maybe there's some specific questions you would like to ask about that piece. I would be happy to share.
Great. Thank you. And there's so much in there. There's so
Yes.
much. I mean, you've led such an extraordinary life, you know, to move through all of the dysfunction and to bring yourself through. As a mother of 5 children, I mean, I absolutely commend you for being open enough to listen and to have the courage and the strength to really walk a new path, you know, and that's huge.
Well, you know what it is, Mara? It's like when you have an awakening and when it's your time, which a lot of times that's midlife. They call it the midlife crisis, right? It's like once you understand, it changes the fabric of who you are. And then you become this whole different person who is there to totally open up, to understand like everything. And then the more you know, the more you know you don't know a damn thing. Sorry, that's the truth.
For sure.
Yeah, so it's just, it's a calling to your soul to open. And that's just when mine chose to open. And I'm very grateful. I could never go back. There's times I wish I didn't know everything I knew. But in reality, I would way rather know what I know and move forward in it, because if you don't know, you can't change anything, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the evolution of this path of earth walking or earth working, whatever way you want to put it, you know, because I've done a lot of work with you at various, you know, vortex points and
Mhm.
high energetic portals on this planet. And so I totally understand the depth of this, but I would love you to speak to some of the processes I was involved with you, which were all centered around the City of Light, and
Yes.
your mission around that back in 2012, if
Mhm.
you would.
Absolutely. So we started doing the Cities of Light. It was opened up first by a lady named Iris Barkhausen and she's from Holland. They brought me together with her when I was told to go to Hawaii. And in Hawaii, they told me exactly where I should be staying. And she showed up, and I knew I was supposed to meet someone there. Well, once we got together, it was like this big boom went off, and I knew that we had work that we had to do together. And so at that point in time, we started working with the Galactic Federation. And the Galactic Federation is a council of beings from many different star systems and planets. And they're here working on holding the energetic field for humanity as we, work through these, layers and levels of stuff that's going on in the planet. But what they kept coming and saying is like, do you guys remember you have a contract together? And I'm like, I don't know about any contract. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, no, you guys have promised that you would bring together the cities of light for the world. And I'm like, well, she lives in Holland. I live in the United States. You know what? Go ahead and let her find somebody over there. I really didn't really want that much to do with it. I didn't really understand what it was. And but yeah, when you have a karmic contract, you kind of are stuck doing it. So at one point,
Could you explain, sorry to interrupt you, just for those listening, what exactly in your interpretation is a City of Light? Just so for
okay,
those who wouldn't, it's not
yeah,
part of their realm.
yeah. So that would be a really good thing to go into first. Yes. So a city of light is like, honestly, I've seen it. I've seen it in visions before. And this is the way it's going to be eventually, but we'll talk about the process after we do this. But it's this beautiful city that just is floating up in another dimension. It's above the earth, and it's made of all crystal. It's crystalline form, and it is amazingly beautiful. And it has all of these beautiful buildings and like libraries, Akashic record libraries, healing, places. And by anchoring those in, on the earth, it's going to take some time for the physical manifestation to really anchor down and in. So what they wanted us to do first is to create pillars that would eventually be the basis for these cities of light. Mm-hmm. And the pillars are set into place and they triangulate off from each one that is done. So like the first one was Sedona, the second one was Kauai, the third one was Glastonbury. And so then that would make a triangle and create a stronger pillar for this to happen, this to anchor in. And what happens is it creates this energetic, it's like an energetic, it's a star, like, so it's galactic, it's inner earth, you know, it encompasses all realms of existence. And it's an energy that gets anchored into a place and it raises the frequency quite a bit higher. So it's like helping that fifth dimensional frequency start to stabilize. So it's the new earth energy. It's laying the groundwork for the new earth to come in. And so when that happens is because when star beings come onto the planet, they have to lower their frequency to be able to come into a 3 or 4D dimensional reality because they're way higher vibrating than what we are on this planet. And so it helps them to be able to come into this space and interact. It also helps awaken the sleeping human and their DNA and activate their high heart. So the high heart is where their Christ consciousness lies, where their God self lies. And when you can activate the high heart, you begin to create in a space of only love. You can't create any other way. To create a fifth dimensional frequency in this new planet that we're all working towards manifesting, you have to be able to create from the space of love. And so it creates this grid that spreads out, and it's always done on water because water holds frequency and it can be programmed, right?
Yeah.
It's always done on water, and it's always done out in nature where there is a focal point of people coming. And that is one of the things that I learned very quickly on, is that it's always going to be placed where there's a lot of people coming. Now, it was anchored into Sedona. It did have a little rocking or wobbling effect because Sedona is an amazing place. But when you hold great light, you also hold great darkness, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
It was this kind of a rocking thing that went on, and people started calling from Sedona and asking if we could tone it down, the City of Light down, because it was causing too much disruption right away. So we've had to go in and smooth out the frequencies, or even had to move it at one point for just a little bit because it was getting so overrun by people. So it's a very interesting thing, and I know I've seen it, but it was to be first and energetic, because that's always the way it is. Energy first, and then creation follows the energy. And so they're there, and what was interesting is it was my job to figure out who held the blueprint for the City of Light in the area, and then to figure out where it was supposed to be placed. And then Iris was the one who was the channeler who brought through the galactic, and it worked out really nice that way. But as you all know, in order to do that, we had to get a group of people together, and we really had to look at our crap. So it was like intense clearing for everyone, and it wasn't pretty. It wasn't fun.
I can attest to that 100%.
And it's like herding a bunch of cats, and it was excruciatingly hard. But as you well know, after it happened, then things also began to happen that were very strange. And, and I mean, I had an extremely hard time after that first opening, and it took a very long time to incorporate the energy. So it was very interesting. It is very overseen by the Galactic Council. I will say that. And then you put some, people or some spiritual beings there that are like the gatekeepers. So they're always monitoring, and you have to monitor. So anyway, that's pretty much what a City of Light is. And as you know, because you were part of the one in Glastonbury.
And Sedona, actually.
Yeah, and Sedona, yes. And we had to go clear ley lines before we could have that open. So in part of it, we have to go clear the spaces that are incongruent or bringing through energy that isn't quite right. So Glastonbury is like a multi-dimensional portal in itself. Like there's layers and layers of all these stories that go on there, and you can feel it. It's like going to, I call it going to, not Hollywoodville. It's like Storyland. It's just bizarre. You have like the pirate who's slapping a lady's bottom in the bakery talking, and then you have a town crier and a witch and the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I mean, it is crazy there. It's crazy. It's fun. It's crazy. But for the City of Light opening there, you and I had to travel to different places in Ireland, which I was so grateful that you knew about these places. So we had to clear different ley lines, and we also had to energetically ramp up some places. Plus, we had to collect stones that were from a particular place and bring them back over into Stonehenge. So we have had lots of experiences, plus a beautiful crop circle that was made just for the opening of this. It was incredibly powerful, and all of the crap that goes along with it, with all the different people that are attracted to coming to open the Cities of Light. It was intense. So within that, what would you like to share, Mara, because you were part of it?
Well, speaking to that, I think going back to the Cities of Light, because it took me a while. I was new to that work when I first met you, and the understanding of what was happening, because we all have different perceptual awarenesses of what that could mean, an etheric city of light, right? But looking back, that was a pivotal time in 2012. We were all in transition as a planet and as a people, as many peoples, and so yeah, absolutely. Those places that you were guided to choose, like you were being the intermediary on behalf of all the other races of beings that interact with our world and that we interact with, on assignment here on planet Earth, right? Would you have it like that? So I suppose, yeah, speaking to the light and the dark, those of us who have worked with the earth or the ley lines and work energetically with clearing, we had to face our darkness and bring that into balance with our light in order to hold more light, because we are human portals, right? So
exactly, and that's what they would have me do a lot of times, Mara, is like, so I went all the way through Europe, a lot. And it would be so weird because somebody would call me and say, you need to come over here. You're supposed to bring these crystals to use as seed crystals when you go, or there's certain high vibrating oils that we brought from Egypt that you need to bring, or, there'd be all this stuff. And then it was like, yeah. And then they would have me tone frequencies into these crystals and like go into churches and bring the feminine back into balance, or go into water and seed this energy into the water. They'd send us like, well, one time it was like the Wolf Well in Germany, and it was trying to help get all of the Hitler energy more in balance and bring that all up. And I remember one time we seeded this one crystal into this well. And they said, okay, now hurry as fast as you can back to the car. And like, what did you just have us do, you know? And they said, well, in order for the light to anchor deeply within a person, they have to first release the darkness. You can't hold light if you have all this dark energy. So you have to like work with releasing or acknowledging this dark energy. And by acknowledging it, not pushing it away or seeing it, then you can actually give it the chance to turn back into a beautiful source of power. Because a lot of our darkness and that which we're most scared of there, or that which hurt us the most, is actually something that we can turn into something really good if we chose to do it, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it isn't all just fun and pretty lights and love and, you know, I mean, when people get to that state, I'm just like, really? Can you hold it if I goose you while you're saying that? You know, come on, people. It's not just about love and light. There's work that needs to be done.
Absolutely. And I feel like, you know, this is not work for everyone. This walking the path of being in earth stewardship for this planet and interfacing with these energies are not for everybody. And there's people, I think, in the last number of years that I've seen doing this sort of earthwork that, you know, there isn't a true comprehension of what it is. And it's not an innate calling. I think you have to have an innate calling from spirit to do this work, because it's not easy. It is totally tumultuous in my experience, and you have to sacrifice a lot in order to show up on these levels, you know.
Yep, it's true.
Which I've seen in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's at different levels too, because sometimes, well, okay, so earlier you asked me, it's like, so who guides you to do this stuff? You know?
Right, yes.
And it's like, okay, so sometimes it's the ancestors. So, like, the ancestors will wake me up in the middle of the night, and that's indigenous ancestors, it always is. And they will say, Barbara, could you go to, and they'll show me the exact spot, and could you please like clear that area for us? And I'm like, well, why are you asking me? Why don't you call like one of the indigenous people and have them do it, you know? And you know what, there's this great knowing within me that I've been indigenous many times. You know, it's like I just don't go there anymore. So I'm like, okay, sure, I'll do it, but you do understand there's like gale of force winds today, right? And that's a heck of a climb. And they'll say, you'll be protected, we promise. And so I have a really cute story around that if you want me to share it.
Please.
It's fun. So yeah, I got woke up and they said, well, you have a staff, your feather on your staff needs to be replenished. We're going to give you a feather. You're going to find one and you're going to lose one on your staff, but we need you to go do this job for us. And I said, sure, I'll go do it. And then I thought, well, I better bring Dana, who's a friend of mine, up with me because it was so tumultuous and windy. It was like gale of force winds, and you have to walk this little cliff, you know, all the way up to this spot with Smoke Signal Rock. And so we did it, and I got halfway up there. Dana went his direction, I went my direction, and not 2 minutes later, my crow feather fell off, and it started going. And I go, well, there's the one they told me I was going to lose. So I keep climbing, and I get up to the top, and I am so scared because it is so windy, I can't hardly keep on my feet. And so there's a tree up there. I wrapped myself around the tree. I got out my drum. They started downloading this song into me, and I started drumming and singing and, you know, doing this where you can take your mind and you can flash it out to clear the area. And as I did it, it got windier and windier and windier. And they always come to me through the wind anyway. But, you know, and you can start to feel them all. And when I got to the apex of it, bam, the wind all stopped. And then rock fell on top of me. And I'm like, holy crap, thanks a lot. It hit my back. And they said, well, turn around and pick it up. And I said, okay. So I grabbed it and I brought it around, and it was the perfect outline of a Hopi grandmother. Perfect. And it was like, 10, 12 inches high by 6 inches wide. It was a good chunk of rock. And they said, thank you from the grandmothers. And I was like, wow, like who in the heck would even believe this, So I do have my grandmother by my bed. They always come to me in grandmothers. And that's the kind of stuff that happens, not big glamorous. Anything is not opening up. I'm just going to go open up portals like a lot of people do. It's like I don't really do stuff unless I'm really being called to do it or asked to do it. Because a lot of times what happens is people kind of get into their mind and they think they're doing good, or they think that they're supposed to do something, but they're not really being guided to do it. And that can cause a lot more problems. So, we all learn in certain ways, and it made me go out and clean up a lot of people's stuff that they had done. And that's fine. You learn, aren't you doing it out of intent? But we should all be getting to the point that we understand that if we go into nature and we're holding a lot of trauma or drama or sadness in our body, that we're leaving it behind somewhere. So all you have to do is turn around and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I ask that this energy be transcended back into the light. And I'm grateful. Thank you, nature.
Beautiful.
Otherwise, they call in people like me that have to go out there, and you and, all the rest of us. And a lot of times it is done for, like genocides or warring.
Famine.
Yes, and you and I remember that one time we were walking on the beach, Mara, and I went down and I was having like a heart attack. Do you remember that?
Over in Ireland here?
Yes.
Yes.
And I mean, that was about clearing, an imprint that was there, towards the Vikings coming in, raping and pillaging. I had to, we had to do it together, but we cleared that whole space of it. And then I found out it was for a friend of mine. She called later and said, thank you. That was for me, and I couldn't be there to do it. So I really appreciate it. And I'm like, well, okay. It was pretty hurtful, but yeah, absolutely.
The vessels for spirit. I mean, I think there is such a responsibility if this is your dharma, if this is what your soul has chosen to assist with at this time, because there's so much dying. This world is dying. We're being called in, I feel, as midwives, as death doulas, really, and also as birthing doulas, simultaneously. So, and I very much see you as that, like, and the grandmother wisdom that you hold, the triple goddess wisdom that you hold. And I'd love to speak to something that I love about you is that, you love to bring humor in and how, because humor, humility, and wisdom, those three components of you, I love that, because you're so humble about the work. People would not know the enormity of what you carry and what you've done. And it's not necessary. Some of the greatest work is done and no one would ever see it, right? But your ability to lighten a scenario and to that, just it uplifts some of the heavier and denser energies that are moving through our planet, and also the interference energies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a very nice thing for you to say. Yeah.
So Barb, your book, you're about to release that, and you've been obviously having to live and embody the book, right, and
Yeah.
live it through you. What also are you called to do in this next like phase of time? Because everything has shifted and changed, right, since the beginning of
Oh,
this
it
year.
is. It is. And honestly, Mara, I mean, I think we're all still kind of hanging out, right? We're kind of suspended and not really knowing what our next pieces are. Really, I've been sequestered for like 3 years. It's been 3 years that I feel like I've been going through a total sequestering and clearing up of more stuff. And I just keep saying, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready to open up my seeing, my understanding, my knowing, and have those interdimensional experiences again, if that's what is to be for. Now, the galactics have been coming in a lot more lately, and honestly, I mean, they're here for a very, very good reason. And I just feel like, they're bridging all the energies for everybody. Like the energies have been so intense for everyone. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be used in some ways just to share my stories more. That's what it feels like. It's coming forward for me, is really opening my mouth and being able to speak what I know is true, so that it can help other people. Because how many people are out there, Mara, that have things happen to them and they think I'm crazy? Like, this doesn't happen to other people, or why am I being asked by this invisible voice to, do this certain thing? It's like, I don't think people really understand, but I honestly think a lot of people have experiences and they're too afraid to share them.
Yeah.
And I've got to the point that I'm not afraid to share my stories anymore. I used to be afraid that people were going to think I was crazy or they weren't going to believe me, but that was old programming that I adhered to from being brought up in, an alcoholic family. And, we've been taught to keep our mouth shut. Right? So, I mean, I think I've come to the place where I've worked that through and I can share freely without being afraid anymore, because honestly, what's coming forward for us is not in the storybooks anyway. It's like time for us to start sharing, because if we don't share, we're not going to get to where we need to go. And that does not look like the earth that we are dismantling right now. This is all about bringing those new frequencies in, those frequencies of the heart, and an expanded frequency of like bringing in all realms of existence. Because if we really knew how powerful we are, we're made in the image of God. We are God. We're an extension of God, living in this human body like a spaceship, really here to create this amazing reality where only your imagination can take you. Your innate, knowing, beautiful imagination. And then you realize it's really not your imagination. It's an innate knowing, and you're just remembering what you really know. So that's what I think I'm here to do, is to start helping people open up. I'm a space holder. I activate people. I help them to get to their highest potential. And when you're with me in my energy field, you can actually access way more. So it begins to show you a crack of what you can really do. I think a lot of generators are that. I'm a generator.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's not that I hold special gifts and abilities. I don't. I just know what they are. And I'm open to them, and I've been shown them. So I can own them. And that's okay. That's not being grandiose. That's knowing who you are. And part of me has gotten so tired of this shutting down of humanity that is just, it's time. It's time for us to take our power back. It's time for us to move forward in a really beautiful way that is not exclusive. And it's time to remember that you're very, very special. And if most people are truthful, they're going to say, you know what, when I was born and I was a little kid, I didn't understand why the world is the way it was. And I never felt like I fit in. I never felt like this was supposed to be my life. And it took me forever to finally get to the place where, of being shut down so many times, being told that what you see and you know is not really real, that you begin to shut it down yourself because you don't want to be ridiculed and be deemed as a different type of person. I did that a lot as I was a little child. I used to talk to the thunder beings, and I'd go out in the storms and I'd kind of hide on the porch so nobody would see me and tell me I had to come in the house. And I would be out in the hills and I'd be looking for Bigfoot, and I was for the star beings, wondering where in the world they went. And, you know, I was into these beautiful lost civilizations. I mean, I was the true, you know, person who went out there, and I knew there was so much more. And in my mind, I was like, where did everybody go? And everybody knows that they're very special when they are when they're young and they're very little. And it's like you just have this knowingness about you, but yet you're so lonely because nobody really understands who you are. But we don't really understand who we are either. We don't take that time. And so with this great change that we've been having go on, Mara, the thing that I wish for the most is that people will take the time to stop and to go inside and to say, okay, I don't care if you believe in God. I don't believe, you know, that everybody does. I don't think you need to. But I believe that everybody believes there is some force of energy on this planet that is here, that is very divine. And if you can tap into and hand over yourself, your knowingness, your beautiful energy, and say, okay, show me who I am. Just show me who I am. I want to understand myself in life at the very deepest levels. You will be shown. That innate intelligence is here, and it has your back, and it knows exactly where you need to go. And as long as you don't try to bluster it up too much, you're going to get to where you need to go. And I have that great knowingness within me about every person on this planet. And that's my biggest wish, is for people to follow that innate energy that is going to take you into your wildest dreams. And that's what I think I have gotten to experience. And I'm so grateful for how I hold those keys and codes for other people to awaken to their wildest dreams too.
Aho.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love that. May that be ripple out
In
all levels.
Right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I feel like just I think we're coming near to the end here, but it's a little bit of time, and I just wanted to speak to also you know, the role of nature, how important, like all of the work we've both been doing through our lives, you know, it's so connected to nature and being in your body. And you know, you're great, you've grown all your own foods, you've been a farmer, you've worked with, you know, the components of the earth, you know, throughout your whole life. So the importance of people going back into those ways and remembering, because that opens up the doorway to their true self, you know?
Absolutely.
Right?
You know, I met a guy who didn't have a stitch of spiritual teaching within him at all, but he had been a park ranger his whole life. He was one of the most profoundly spiritual people I knew, you know. So it's like nature is here to teach us, and we are nature. We've just forgotten who we are in the whole scope of everything. And when you learn how to talk to trees, and you learn how to listen to the water, and you listen to the plants, and you grow food with intention, and you know that if you walk barefoot on your land, that the land will sprout up everything that you need to heal your physical body. You know there's this innate intelligence that runs through all things. And a lot of the things that I teach people is like to work with the heartbeat of the mother, because if you can remember that she's a living organism with intelligence. And I was always tuned into nature incredibly a lot. But honestly, I have to give great thanks to Benny LeBeau. He was Blue Thunder. They called him Bravado at the end, but him and I had a beautiful relationship and friendship. And he truly brought me back to the native teachings of nature. And I will always be grateful for that. And, it started out by me cutting branches off a tree to make a medicine wheel. And he was so upset. And he's like, "Did you even ask that tree if it wanted its branches cut off? Did you seal it?" "No." Are you supposed to do that? I didn't know. So we've become also unconscious. He taught me how nature and the earth works together. Like, let's say there's a storm and the lightning hits, and most people are like, oh. But what they don't understand is that lightning is actually like, a machine that starts the hearts back up. So it clears energy, but it also infuses energy into a place that needed to have extra energy put into it or a clearing done. They knew how to sing songs to keep the earth in balance. The native people were really taught how to interact with nature and how nature gives them clues, how the animals give them clues and speak to them and protect them. And I mean, they had it going on. They knew not to cut a river off and start a big lake and then another river. They didn't alter the land. They worked with the land to create the food and everything we needed. It wasn't really until we started getting into all these farms, the small family farms were awesome. And that's the way I think it has to go back to, is organically raising and humane animal husbandry, because these massive farms where they have all these animals packed together and we're getting all of this antibiotics, these drugs infused, which then are going into the people who eat them, plus the land, because we take their feces and we spray it out onto the land. The water runs it into the river runs it into the ocean, and we've got glyphosate, we've got all of stuff that we didn't need before. And so the true planning of, moving into our next form of, cleaning up this earth and stuff cannot be done without, smaller conceptual understanding of the land and true permaculture, and bringing together like the work needed to be done to create land with no more chemicals. Because what are we doing to our children? Honestly, what are we handing over to our children and our grandchildren? It makes me sick. So, we all have to step up to the plate, and I don't blame the farmers. I am starting to get to the point of like, come on, guys, we got to wake up here. But I remember them telling me that they literally were told that glyphosates were totally harmless. And they would have a big jug of it, and the guy who was presenting it would actually pour a glass and drink it.
It's complete ignorance, Barb. Having studied horticulture like in recent years, I mean, it's part of the curriculum, that we have to go out with backpacks and learn the protocols for applying glyphosate. It's crazy. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yes. And like, what are we doing to our soil? We have soil who is all blowing away now. It's dead. It only grows by what they put back into it now. They don't rotate crops the way they used to. I mean, so we have to bring in some of the beautiful old stuff, for a reason. And then we have to bring in the new stuff, and which I think is honestly going to happen. I can feel all of this within me. I don't know if you can, but I can.
Absolutely.
I mean, as horrible as everything looks right now, I do know we have to break down the old in order to bring in the new. And the new to me looks like a beautiful place where everybody is interactive with nature, and that they really begin to understand the role that nature plays with you. And I mean, like, nature even helps us to manifest what we need. You know, if people understood that the elements of nature are the way that the human body actually manifests their reality, they would pay probably a little bit more attention. So I'm just hoping that more people get out there that start teaching about nature. And I was actually given 4 books that I was supposed to write. I think they're just going to be little books. And one is about the interaction with nature and how, yeah, there was just all this different information that just kind of keeps coming forward. So the more and the more people start sharing that wisdom, and like here I'm seeing a popping up of, there's like this triangle of farmers who have decided to pull in and take over the land and make it totally sustainable, totally.
Regeneration.
And I'm seeing it sprout up here big time. So I'm just praying that sprouts up other places as well.
That's fantastic. And it is. It's happening here in Ireland. It's happening everywhere. It's pockets and pockets of people, which is great to see. It's it's so needed. And even if you don't have your own garden, I don't have my own garden right now, but I'm growing what I can, and just working with what you have and supporting the local farmers.
Yes.
And that's where we're ingesting that food then, and our own consciousness is being upgraded by the earth too, right?
Yes, absolutely. And if you remember, even if you can't have that really high organic stuff, pray into your food. Pray minerals and nutrients and love and gratitude into your food. And it raises the frequency of the food tenfold. Do that when you're cooking for your family and your children. I'll never forget a time I went over to a friend's house and I had to go, and she didn't want me to leave without a little sack lunch. It was so cute. So she gave me this little sack lunch, and I was starting to eat it on the way home, and I could feel love spreading throughout my whole body. And I called her up and I said, Jane, did you put love into my food? And she goes, I did. And she said, you could feel it? And I said, yep, I could. Thank you. And that just goes to show you that we can actually feel what other people do to their food. So
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this beauty. And once you start having experiences of it, then you're shown. It's like, okay, now that's in my little file cabinet. And I'm going to be more conscientious about how I create and make my food and make sure that I'm putting love into it, because why not? Yeah. So it's all about unlearning everything that we've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
Is like ass backwards here. You have to unlearn to really learn like the truth.
Breathe into that one.
Yeah. And it's the same way with us. We believe ourselves to be a certain way, and nothing could be more wrong. We are divine sparks of God, goddess, that are here to create. We came here to wake up the people. You wouldn't be here if you weren't one of those people. And you just have to figure out in which way that you can do that. What is your peace? And that's the biggest part that we have to, move into at this time, especially. Like, what is my peace? Do I need to open my mouth and share? When do I need to be quiet? Because there is this fine line in there. And if we get knocked off our center and start fighting about stuff, we're just adding to the frequency of what's going on. But you have to also learn to speak your piece and your truth, no matter what anybody else thinks. So
thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm, thank you. I'm really glad that you're doing this kind of stuff, Mara. It's very needed.
Thanks, Barb. I think that's a wonderful note to end our conversation here. There's so much more that I could be diving into with you, particularly around the galactics and kind of unpacking all of that for people. And I think maybe at another point we'll go further into more of the
Yep.
esoteric meeting points that you've had with synchronistic meetings of other beings and that kind of thing, because I'd love that
Absolutely.
information to come to the fore.
Absolutely. So, another time.
Exactly. So just to end this, you're just for the viewers here who receive this, what lands are you on? You're on the native lands in Minnesota. Who are the native
I'm
people
in Minnesota
there?
right now. And if anybody wants to look more into my work, they can go to it's called aligning-the-soul.com.
Beautiful. And I'll put all those links down there as well. So from the Green Isle and the Western Shores here in Ireland across to Minnesota and back again to whomever receives this, sending you all love. And Barbara, thank you so much. So much love.
Thank you, Mara. I wish you the best in all this. It's a great way to start bringing in the new energies.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
You bet.
Thank
Bye.
you.